Oh snap, we're live. Hello everybody, buonasera. This is episode number 1 of Movies and Chill with my co-host, the Hellacious Hero, Giuseppe.
Giuseppe today, huh? Forget about it.
You know why it's Giuseppe today. Why? What? Because we're doing what movie? I mean, it's obvious, right?
What movie are we doing then?
We're doing a movie you can't refuse to talk about, It's a Godfather, It's a Vito Corleone,
Il Padrino.
Yes.
Well, this is probably one of the greatest movies of all time.
Absolutely agree. Amazing movie.
Definitely in my top 10 of best movies ever. Of course, overpowered by number 2, but that's for another time, I guess.
Ooh. Same here. Oh, I want to talk about. I'm gonna watch that now. Like, damn it.
Okay, let's end this broadcast. See ya.
Yeah. So good.
Right. So, when was the first time you saw this movie, Giuseppe?
Well, in case everybody out there watching doesn't know, I am Italian, half, and it's funny because Michael Corleone's son, Anthony. That's my dad's actual name. His son's name is Anthony Vito. That's my dad's name. My dad's name is Anthony Vito, and then my last name, Labriola. So I don't know if my pap did that on purpose, or my grandma, but pretty cool. But the first time I saw it was growing up. I was telling Son about this earlier. I wasn't really close with my mom's side of the family. We lived on the same block as. I live in a city called Altoona, Pennsylvania, and there's actually a section I live in still around my family and stuff because they don't live very far away. But it's like it was called the Little Italy section of Altoona. So like there was a bunch of Catholic church around, and we all went to the same church. Like my aunt lives like 3 or 4 blocks away from me. My uncle lives a block away from me. My other uncle lives a block away from me. And my parents live in a section of the city. It's about 10 or 15 minutes away now. But like growing up, it was awesome because we were so close together. We would just anytime we had a family gathering, it was like a million people, just like the movie. But I was telling Son this earlier. I kind of went off on a tangent there a little bit. But when I was a kid, like when I was younger, I can remember my pap. And when I think about it, I would walk in like the living room of his house and I'd see Marlon Brando. Like, and I didn't know at the time it was The Godfather, but I'd see it on TV. And as soon as I walked in, he would like stop the movie because I don't think he wanted me to watch like that kind of stuff. I don't know if it was too mature or because it depicted like Italian Americans sort of like in a negative light. So I don't know if he wanted me to watch that, but I didn't really come to actually fully watch it until I was in like junior high or high school. I think I watched it the first time because like I said, when we were doing the CinemAsian stuff, I would go to the video store and pick out movies, and it was around that time I found that, and I was like, ooh, what's this? And I watched it. And my parents were both really busy, so like they didn't really have time to like realize what movie I grabbed. I would grab a movie, it'd be in a clear plastic case. I didn't even know what the CD said. You go bring it out to the register, I go put it in. All right, your babysitter's gonna be here to watch it. Okay, see you. And then I'd watch it, Godfather. So that's the first time I saw it. I was probably like, I want to say probably like 8th, maybe 9th grade. I think it was 8th grade. So I was probably 14, 13, 14, something like that.
Yeah, because I'm not familiar when someone says 8th grade. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
8th grade. Yeah.
8th grade here is probably when, I mean, this is the last year of just school and then we go to high school, I guess. So 11, 12?
So around the same time as me, probably a little bit earlier than I did.
Yeah, but I saw this movie, I guess, I think it was on TV for the first time somewhere in my teenage years because, it was the 90s and you had those small TVs. And I got a PlayStation, so I had this small TV in my bedroom, I should say, and I could watch whatever the fuck I wanted. Like that was like next level of freedom, right? Sorry, I just took an aspirin. It's kind of like, ooh. Uh, but when I saw it for the first time, because I was familiar with Al Pacino, I was familiar with Marlon Brando,
Hooah!
because
Yeah.
my mom was always talking about, like Marlon Brando when she was growing up. Like, yeah, he was like the hot shot. So I would watch it, and I was like, oh, that's the guy she's talking about. He looks kind of old and weird, but only to see later.
Oh, and weird. Brando.
You know, with all due respect, hey, I'm the Godfather, you come in here, you disrespect me like that,
But I was like, wait, he's still the beautiful man. But I was like, that's it. But Al Pacino, one of my favorite, if not my favorite actor of all time. Though I do not necessarily like his current stuff for like the last 20 years. Though I did like the movie that he recently did with Martin Scorsese.
With my favorite actor, yeah. Robert De Niro.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice. It's also almost like a nice farewell to like the good old days of gangster movies with the originals in it. But aside from that, this movie was dang-a-lang.
Oh yeah, it's funny that you mentioned like Al Pacino was your favorite because I really didn't start to appreciate Al Pacino until later. Because, like you said, your mom kind of like Marlon Brando and Al Pacino. Like me growing up, my dad was more of a De Niro fan. So like logically, I watched De Niro movies with my dad later in life. So like De Niro became my favorite actor. I remember I was in 10th grade, so I was a sophomore, and I wrote a paper, and they were like, "Name one famous person who's a huge influence on your life," and I picked Robert De Niro. And we had to like dress up like the one of the characters from the movie, and I dressed up like his Jimmy Conway in Goodfellas. That was my thing. I slicked my hair back and everything, and I went in there, and that's when I started doing like the New York accents and stuff because I was like a class clown a lot, and I would do the "Hey, how you doing? Hey, how's it going? Hey, how you doing? It's me. It's Bobby De Niro. So like that's when I started to do that kind of stuff, and people loved it, and it fit me really well because obviously, like I said, I'm Italian, so it was like a really cool transition. And then later in life, I really started to get into Pacino and go back and watch his movies because I grew up with like Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, Godfather Part 2. I actually saw Godfather Part 2 on TV after I saw the original movie, and I didn't understand it because like I was a kid, like it didn't make sense to me that. And like going back, I'm like, this is freaking amazing. When you start to get into all the other stuff like Goodfellas, Casino, Donnie Brasco with Pacino and Johnny Depp, that's a great flick, like all that kind of stuff. So the
Which
movie
also kind of like in a way because the real life character Vito and Michael are based on, I think it's like Bonanno.
Yeah, they're actually they are. They're actually elements taken from them that are from the Bonanno crime family, but also the Genovese crime family. So really, what's the other family in this called? The Tattaglia.
Yeah, the Tattaglia.
They're supposed to be like heavily based on the Genovese. So it's pretty cool. I mean, I know you and I are talking here and like just like loving it, but we might have to give a history lesson here, Sana. So you're gonna have to spill your beans on the five families here because I know you love it. I don't know anything about it.
Well, mostly the real life five families.
Yeah.
And in particular, one of the first books that I ever got on the mafia, it was a book called The American Mafia, and it pretty much starts out with Giuseppe Morello, the Claw, and how it develops into, because he arrived in, I think, like 1896, 97 in New York, and there were already just a few mafiosi there because they were like fleeing from Sicilia.
Yeah.
And just he was one of the founding members of but later would become as the Five Families. So, and then of course my all-time favorite character to read upon is Lucky Luciano.
He was the mythos around him is insane. You know,
Yeah.
he's just growing up. I love De Niro, so my favorite, obviously, gangster to read about and study was Capone because he played Capone in the Untouchables movie with Kevin Costner and Sean Connery. So like,
Oh, that's such a great movie too.
it is, and I love that movie too. But Capone was like the one I was like, this guy's like nuts, but he was so fascinating to study, you know, and read about. So like, where you had Luciano, I had Capone, but like I love reading about Luciano too, and that kind of was my introduction into like what we're talking about, like the Five Families. What Bonanno, Genovese, Colombo. Who else is in New York now? There's two other families.
Yeah, the Gotti.
Gotti, the Luchis. There's a Buffalo Crime Syndicate, Chicago's Crime Syndicate, Kansas City Crime Syndicate. I mean, they're everywhere. Like still, but it's so fascinating. Oh my god, this movie!
It is.
This movie is like rewatching it. I was like, oh my god, it's. I was telling Sana before the stream, like it really. Don't get us wrong, okay? We're not criminals, all right? We're not criminals. We're just fascinated by this structure. Because, Sana, you told me before that you have some Italian in you, like you're a little bit Italian.
Yeah, my mom used to say that from my my grandfather's side. But I'm where it ends, where my mom says it comes from.
Yeah.
I cannot find anything like records and stuff like that. Hence, my second name is Angelina. But it's kind of like a weird mystery. But there's no one to ask because they're all dead.
Yeah, my grandparents and my parents, even to this day, my brother even, you know, friends even call me Giuseppe. I mean, that's really my name. My name's Giuseppe Antonio. I mean, that's named after my dad, but everybody just calls me Joe because that's the Americanized version, you know. But like growing up in that family and watching this movie, here's the thing I wanted to hit home. Like, it is about, you know, organized crime. It is about the Cosa Nostra. It is about mafia in the United States, and in particular New York City and the Italian crime families. But it also really showcases like heritage for me personally, because there's some scenes in that are like really touching to me watching it again, like at the beginning with Carlo and Connie's wedding. That was like, it reminded me of being a kid and going to like relatives' weddings, because that's what we used to do. We would go to the church, we would go to a family's house, and there'd be this huge ceremony with a ton of people. People would be singing and dancing in Italian. My aunt used to teach me curse words in Italian, and I would say them.
Like which ones?
Oh, like, you know, like fango, you know, mangia la gazza, you know, like shit like that, you know. And I'd be saying that stuff out loud, and I'd come home after, because she would babysit us sometimes. And I'd come home and I'd be saying it because I was a little kid, and I'd be like, Van Gogh. My dad would be like, what the hell did you just say? I'd be like, Van Gogh. And I get my ass kicked. But like, like watching it, it reminded me of that, because she was like the real animated, like my aunt reminded me of Vito Corleone's wife, like the old lady who's, like my aunt was like, oh, she still is like that, you know? And the whole dynamic with like faith too, and like Christianity and Catholicism is in this movie too. Like, there's a scene with a baptism, there's the wedding scene, there's a bunch of that stuff rolled into it. But I think it's cool how it showcases that a lot of these guys, even though some of them are ruthless criminals, they really are. Like, some of them are cold-blooded killers. They do have a human side to them too. Like, they're not completely evil. They're not 100% evil. You know, there are some redeeming qualities, so to speak, from these characters that you can relate to as a human. You can see like the struggle they go through. And in particular, I think you can really see that with Michael's character, because at first, like, he's so conflicted. He doesn't want anything to do with this family, like, business stuff. Then eventually he ends up like morphing into what he, at the beginning of the movie, you think he would never want to do that. Like, if you didn't know, if you never saw The Godfather, right? Let's just say this is 1972, and you're like, oh shit, what's this movie? Huh? And you don't know, you know, in hindsight, because we're looking back on it like 30, 40 years later, or 50 years later, excuse me, almost 50 years later.
Time.
Yeah, like, you would think if you first saw this and you met Al Pacino's character, you know, Michael Corleone, you would think he was the one who was going to like stop all the stuff from happening. But how this weird twist of events happens that causes him to like become his father, pretty much. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like it is a what word do I want to use here? It's a tour de force on like movie making and character development and storytelling and historical like fantasy, so to speak. And the thing is, even though it is historical fantasy and a lot of these characters and these families are made up, the author I said this on earlier, the authenticity of the movie, like what I talked about for me as an Italian American watching it and seeing how these things develop is real shit. I mean, it's a real thing. Like this stuff actually happened. Like Sana said earlier, the Corleone crime family is modeled after the Genovese and the Bonanno crime family. Like they are real families. Like this stuff actually happened. Like people see the Godfather as this some like romanticized version
Oh,
of mafioso and Cosa Nostra, but the reality of it is it's pretty fucking real. Like this shit is real. So it's kind of cool. Like you mentioned some scenes in the movie that stuck out to you earlier that reminded you of stuff that was written about other mafioso, crime bosses. Like it relates to reality. Like the parallels to reality are there, like throughout the entire film.
yeah. Like the famous dining scene, everybody knows that, where Al Pacino, sits there with Salozzo and the corrupted officer, cop, whatever it is.
McCluskey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is basically um, very much inspired by Lucky Luciano and Mazzaria, because Mazzaria was very like old style, and Luciano was like, okay, this guy tried to kill me before, I'm gonna whack him. And the famous thing that he's known for is that he went to the bathroom and then people walked in and shot the boss dead. But in this movie, he walks out, grabs the gun, walks out and shoots them. And going to Sicily, I believe that's also based on someone of the Genovese family that was what's the word? Accused of murder or whatever. So he had to like flee and for I always have to fucking apologize for being like really into this subject, like, oh, the mafia girl, like people assume that I put them on, like, how do you say it, like a pedestal, whatever.
Yeah, a pedestal.
Uh,
Like you idolize them, so to speak.
but I don't. I just think it
I know.
is really fucking interesting. I mean, you have to understand that whenever you read about these characters, they basically never finished school. They were always considered the dumb kid in school. Yet they managed to build up something so fucking huge and so corrupt. It's like, what the fuck? And then there's people that are like, if you would look into like a documentary of when the mafia was in control of Vegas, people were like, and basically you hear people say afterwards, like, when the mob left, it became more dangerous. Or there are also, what's his name? Was it Russo, the guy that you met that's also in the movie? I think that there was an interview once with him on YouTube. I think it was him, though, that he's like, people, whenever they are afraid of the mob, but whenever they walk in the street and they notice something dangerous over there across the street, they choose to walk where some of the mafioso are sitting because they know they will be protected. So there's like constant duality going on, like they're being hated on, but people also feel kind of safe around them. Not saying that anything that they do is right, but it is interesting.
No, you're right. I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. And there's a line in the movie where Michael says that to Kay. The Diane Keaton plays Kay, his wife, well, his second wife. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he says, like, what's the difference? He's like, what my father does. He's like, it's the same thing as politicians and people in power and all this kind of stuff. It's the exact same thing. Like Sodom was talking about how it's fascinating that these guys did it in a different way. It's kind of interesting. Almost like she said, like, if you're comparing these guys to the politicians and stuff like that, you know, a lot of them have degrees and they went to school and they're really articulate and they're really smart. But whereas, like, you're talking about these characters we're mentioning, like in particular in this movie, they're smart too, but in a different way. They're very, very street smart. They're very like real down to earth, real world experience smart. Like when we're talking about the reason that I think what Sana's trying to say is, and why I'm attracted to them too. Sana, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I'm attracted to this kind of stuff too. And I'm not championing it. I'm not saying what they do is right. I'm just saying it's attractive to read about and research and like study, because these are people who came from literally fucking nothing. Like they had nothing, zero, zilch. They were poor as shit. They came from absolutely nothing and built these empires where they controlled cities and states and territories across like the United States of America. You know, it's like, it's insane to think about that. This guy literally comes from nothing. Like I know we're kind of going a little ahead here, but like in Godfather 2, Vito Corleone's character, like he comes from absolutely nothing. And by the time you go back and watch Godfather 1, like we just did, he has a huge fucking empire, like a mansion with all of these connections and all these people in his back pocket. That's fascinating to me, and I know it is to Sana too, like how one person like that can have nothing, and then all of a sudden they're just like, you don't fuck with these people, you know? Like,
Yeah, but there's also this small dialogue between Kay and Michael where she's like, these guys are not like politicians or anything, or they are not getting people, or politicians are not getting people killed. Or Michael is like, who is naive?
yeah, they are.
But really, like, what is the difference? As Lucky Luciano used to say, there is no dirty money, there is no good money, there's simply money. And maybe they are smarter and more gutsy than us, but
oh well, yeah. I mean that's a true thing. The thing is, you can tarnish the reputation of a gangster because people see them in society as a gangster. When it comes to tarnishing the reputation of a police officer or a judge or a politician or a congressman or whatever, it's like, oh, you can't do that. Oh, why? Because they're in a position where they're supposed to be protecting you, whereas, like you just said, it's fascinating because it's almost like the rules are reversed here for a second. Like, you look at a gangster and you're like, that person is not designed to protect me. But like you said, you're in New York City, and I've been there. I met Gianni Russo in Little Italy. He's the guy who played Carlo Rizzi in The Godfather. He was one of the nicest fucking dudes I ever met in my entire life. But he literally told me when I met him in Little Italy, I was there with my folks hanging out and a couple members of my family. We walked into this pizza place to get food, and across the street, there was this really nice looking, like almost Venetian styled, like wine shop. And we walked in, and standing at the counters, fucking Gianni Russo, Carlo Rizzi. I was like, holy shit, that's Carlo Rizzi. My dad's like, where? We looked over, Carlo from The Godfather. He's like, holy shit, it is. And as soon as I said Carlo, he's like, hey, come here a second. Let me talk to you. And I went over and talked to him. The guy was humble as shit. And he was there promoting like this Godfather like whiskey that he had created and developed with the like this wine company or this whiskey company or whatever. And he like gave us one for free. And he signed a bottle and everything. I was like, this is badass. This dude's badass. But he said, he's like, I grew up here. He's like, this is my neighborhood. This is actually where I grew up. And he talked about being cast in The Godfather and how even him right now he's a celebrity. He plays music. He's a singer. He's an actor. But he came from absolutely nothing. And he told us the story of when he was a kid, how he grew up in Little Italy and he would run errands for the mafia. Like, he worked for them. So, like, when Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo were writing a screenplay for this movie and going out to get actors for it, they actually got people who actually experienced this shit. And when you watch it, like I said earlier, the sense of authenticity is there because these people experienced this shit. Like Carlo Rizzi's character, I just gave you that. Gianni Russo lived this shit every day.
Luca Brasi, I think, was also related to one of the mafia people. Like he was a wrestler, but I believe he was also like a guard or something like that for one of the top mafias.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like that kind of stuff is so fascinating, you know?
We have
Yeah,
Luigi.
what's up, man?
Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
Keys in the house.
Yes. Thanks, man. What? Say what? You are missing out, bro. It's too slow.
Whoa!
Listen, once you get past the initial like first half hour, 45 minutes, I can see what you're saying. Like it starts off with this kind of slow, like wedding ceremony kind of stuff. There's a scene in it, and here it is. Spoiler alert. Plug your ears and close your eyes and don't watch this if you don't want to hear this. The scene that really gets the movie flowing and kicked off is when Don Vito's character, his godson, Johnny Fontaine, wants to get this role in a movie by this motion picture producer who lives in California. And the scene that really kicks the movie off, and it's like full speed ahead at that point and it never fucking slows down, is Don Vito sends
Wolves?
Robert Duvall's character, what's his name?
No, not James Gunn. Hagen.
His consigliere, yeah. He sends him out to California to negotiate with this guy, saying, like, listen, give Johnny Fontaine the part. And then you come to discover that this movie producer, this director, doesn't want to give Johnny Fontaine the part because a girl he was seeing left him for Johnny Fontaine after he spent all this money on lavish things and hooked her up and put her all in all these movie roles. So he's jealous because Johnny Fontaine took his former girlfriend away from him. And that's the only reason he's not giving him the part, because he's perfect for this role. Well, there's like this prize stallion that this guy has, and he shows Robert Duvall's character, the stallion, while he's trying to make the negotiations, and he ends up turning him down. And he's like, get the hell out of my house. Get the fuck out of here. That's the reason why I don't want Johnny Fontaine, because he took that piece of ass away from me, blah, 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 blah. And then after he shows him his prize stallion, he says he's going to stud this stallion out, so he's going to make even more money off this horse. So it pans the camera. Francis Ford Coppola's direction on this is fucking amazing. Like, it's amazing. Pans to the bed that this guy's sleeping in, and he's like laying there, this movie director, and you see like blood on the sheet, and you think like he's dead. Like, I remember first seeing this, I was like, holy shit, they killed him. Then he like rolls around and he's like alive, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So like,
I guess me on my period.
it's bad. He pulls the sheet back, and like his whole body's covered in blood, his hands, like he's drenched, and it's like you think he's like shot or something, and all of a sudden he pulls the cover off, and Corleone's men took the prize horse, cut its head off. Like, this horse's head is huge, and it's laying in his bed, just covered in blood. You can see like the neck tendons and shit sticking out, and the guy's like screaming. And then later they give Johnny the part after that. But it's like, that is what kicks the movie off, and after that it's like full speed ahead, just swearing, violence, like organized crime negotiations, meetings, all this crazy shit happens. Like, it's I can see why you kind of would lose interest if you like don't know what's coming up, but like, Keys, give it a shot again, man. Like, sit down, make it through the first 30, 45 minutes, and then once you like get to that scene, you're gonna be like, oh shit, and you're like, you'll be hooked to the TV after that, because it just gets better and better and better after that. You know?
Yeah, maybe it will help if you look at it like the character Johnny Fontaine. He is obviously based on Frank Sinatra. Maybe that will because it's basically what Michael Corleone is talking about at the beginning, you know, with the contract with the band leader. That is legit shit that happened with Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra, whenever he wanted like a bigger hit or something else,
old blue eyes would go to the old mafiosos.
But honestly, if like the first scene just, I mean, in the book itself, I have, you know, the Dutch version right here. You know, the very first scene is much more detailed because it actually starts in court with Bonacera, where, you know, two guys fucked up his daughter raped her and her jaw is broken and all that stuff. And these guys, there's no justice, you know. These guys just walk away and they smile at him like eh. So then it's like, now I have to go to Don Vito. And if that scene already doesn't grab you,
That's a good scene.
I don't think the rest of the movie will fucking grab you. I mean, if that is already so fucking intense, because it basically shows what they are about. Like, so now I'm good for you to commit murder. Now you know where to find me, but before you never invited me for like a cup of coffee or whatever.
You knew me for years. You never invited me over to your house for a cup of coffee. Now you come to me and ask me to murder people, huh?
I love it.
Or
I love
just
Brando so much.
in general, the transition of Michael Corleone, I think that's one of the most interesting developments ever in movies. I was just blown away by, you know, how he is basically first like the guy next door, though he is, because as the cops want to arrest him at the hospital, they're like, yeah, but he's a war veteran. It's like, I don't give a fuck, you know, arrest him. He
Yeah, but
basically
this-
he didn't want to be part of it,
Yeah.
and it just changes like that. And the way that he changes is just
Yeah. It's amazing. Like that. Oh my God. I love the movie so much. Keys, the only way we can accept your apology is if you watch the movie. Like, no, just kidding.
Joey.
What? Listen, I love De Niro and I love Pesci. Goodfellas is phenomenal. Scorsese is one of my favorite directors of all time.
Oh.
So, like, I'm with you, but you gotta love The Godfather. I mean, it is, in my opinion, Goodfellas and those movies would not exist without Francis
It
Ford.
literally is The Godfather.
Godfather. Yeah, I mean, seriously, like, and that's no shit. I mean, like, Scorsese, like, talked about how he loved The Godfather so much that he wanted to make something similar to it, but he never thought that he achieved, you know,
Yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola's vision. So
He
that says
was
something.
doing a good thing with Mean Streets, you know, with De Niro
Oh, yeah.
and Harvey Keitel and
Oh, I love Harvey Keitel too. Oh my God.
oh, he's
Yeah.
amazing.
He is.
Uh,
Yeah, they did. They actually did. Yep. Just in
wasn't
case.
it the other way around? No, that
Well, here's the
Is that-
thing. The mafia controlled a lot of that stuff coming in and out. Like, look at you know, the Hudson River and, like, you know, New York Harbor and stuff like that. Who controlled that? The mafia. So, like, if U-boats and stuff were going to come over here and destroy Americans, they were probably going to come to New York first, right, to sink the battleships or whatever, or come to land and destroy stuff. So they were like, listen, can you guys please look out for this stuff for us? Can you please protect the ships so we can actually get supplies and stuff to the people we need to get them to? You know?
Yeah, I got confused because I know that the important people, they went to, here he is again, Lucky Luciano, when he was in jail. But it was to help those people. What the fuck are they called? They were not the U.S. Navy, like the government, whatever.
Coast Guard.
I don't even know. Like, it was about the borders in Sicily that, you know, he had to contact them, like, you know, we need more. I mean, if the government needs them, you tell me.
Good. Yes. Please do it for the horse. He needs you.
Noobs.
Yeah.
Like scuba. Like whoa.
So if you, I mean, of course, there are a lot of scenes in this movie. I mean, I'm not even going to sit here and go through like scene by scene what's happening in the movie, because unfortunately there are people like Keys out there, but it's up to them to watch it, yes or no. If I assume everyone has seen it by now, but if you had to pick only one scene,
Oh, you're killing me.
which scene would you choose that stick out to you? That you're like,
That sticks out to me? Or you see one scene?
just
The entire
one-
movie. The entire movie. No, but I mean, I honestly don't know if I can pick one scene because like I have like 4 or 5 in my head right now that are just so memorable to me. Like, damn, one really? You're gonna limit me to one scene? Fuck.
Pick one too,
Really?
but I
Just one?
of course. Yeah, it's challenge. I'm thinking hard too now, like which one am I gonna pick?
I know I'm thinking really hard here because there's like really a lot that mean a lot to me. Damn. Okay. As I said, the entire movie is one scene that I love. I mean, everything about it is it. I don't really rate a lot of movies perfect, like 10 out of 10. Like a lot of the time, and sometimes I'll exaggerate it and be like, "Oh, that's a 10," when I really don't mean it. Like I really mean like it. This movie, though, like this movie is like perfect. There's nothing about this movie that I think I could change. I mean, like there's absolutely nothing about the movie I would change. I mean, it's. I know we talked about like stuff on CinemAsian, and I know I'm bringing that in here again. And I talked about like 13 Assassins, and how amazing that movie is, and how great it is. And I think I gave that a perfect score, and I did. But I mean, this was almost like on another level. It's like I love 13 Assassins. I think it's an amazing movie, but this movie is just like this movie's like another level of perfect. If that makes any sense,
It makes perfect sense because we talked about it then about how the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Until somewhere in the 90s, the American movies still had really good stories, but in particular, the movies from the 70s. So,
yeah. But
so one scene.
The one scene that really encapsulates everything for me, really, is the very end scene. It really sums up the entire movie. It's kind of like Kay Corleone, Michael's wife, goes to him and she's like, "Did you do it? Did you do it?" And by that, what she means is, "Did you kill Carlo? Did you kill him?" And Michael looks at her and he, like, at first he's like arguing. He's like, "Don't tell me about my business." He's like, "You don't."
I love his screams. It's just so much passion.
He's like, enough. And then he like cools off for a second and he's like, "Okay, this one time, I'll let you ask me about my business." And then she says it again and she's like, "Did you do it? Did you?" And he looks at her with like a smile and he's like, "No." And he goes over and embraces her. And she's like, "Oh, thank God Michael didn't actually kill Carlo." She's like, "I think we need a drink." So she walks out of like this office that they have set up in the Corleone like house. And she goes out to pour Michael and her a drink. And then all of a sudden you see Michael, like the camera goes to Michael sitting in the office like this. And like 2 of his captains come in and they kiss his hand and all this stuff. And they're like, "Oh, Godfather." And then the one guy goes over and closes the door while she's pouring the drinks. And that scene to me is just like fucking amazing because it's like Michael is the fucking Godfather now. And it's funny too because earlier in the movie, he actually becomes the Godfather to Carlo and Connie's son, who they name after Michael. It's like it's a baptism. It's like fucking amazing. Like, and he literally is the Godfather at that point because he's the Godfather to his godson, who's also named Michael Corleone, and then he's the Don Godfather too. Like he's the new head of the Corleone crime family, and it's like that scene just encapsulates the entire fucking movie. An amazing. I remember like talking to people about it before, and they were like, "I don't really like how it ended," and I was like, "What the fuck do you mean?" Like there couldn't.
It's a very powerful ending.
You didn't even need to have a like. Part 2 is my favorite, but like even without part 2 and 3 in existence, if that movie just was by itself and like there was nothing else after it, it would be fucking amazing ending. Like it sums up the entire movie. Like I never got that when people were like, "Didn't really like the ending. There could have been more." It's like, no shit, there could have been more. This guy's a fucking mafia boss. There's an entire life story if I can tell.
Yeah. Also, the fact that his marriage to Kay, I think, is just basically to produce kids and.
Yes, absolutely.
Because he really fell in love in Sicilia.
Apollonia. Oh, Apollonia. Oh, mamma mia. Oh, bellissima. Oh, bellissima. Yeah. But let's do a summary of the story real quick.
You do it.
Okay.
And I'll think of the scene.
Yeah, thank you. You're saying sorry. I'm sorry. I completely
No,
forgot that.
I
No.
still have to think about it. So
Okay. Well, the Godfather movie, guys, as Sana mentioned, the very beginning opens up with this guy asking for a favor because there's these. He talks about his daughter, how like he brought her up in the American way because he emigrated to America and he wanted to make sure that she was able to do what she wanted to do and the American dream, so to speak, right? So she's allowed to date whoever she wants. He doesn't care that she's not dating an Italian, even though that kind of was the family way, right? He doesn't care about it. He's like, so this boy picks her up. He takes her to the movies. He hangs out with her, and then this 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 boy is pressuring this guy's daughter for sex, and she doesn't want anything to do with it. So he basically beats the shit out of her because these two boys beat the shit out of her because they're both trying to, like, him and his friend, this boy and their friend are trying to, like, have sex with her. So, like, she resists and they beat the shit out of her. And like Sana said, she gets her mouth wired shut and she's in a hospital, and her face, it doesn't show it, but he describes it, like, really vividly. Like, she's never going to look the same again, basically, is what he's trying to say, because they bruise her face up so bad, it's unbelievable. So he comes to the Godfather and asks for his services, and that's the scene Sana and I were talking about, where he's like, you come to me with disrespect, you're supposed to be my friend, I've known you for years, you never invited me over to your house for a cup of coffee even. This is Marlon Brando saying this. And then eventually he, like, pledges his fealty, so to speak, and he's like, oh, Godfather, he's like, you're my friend, I need you to help me out, blah, blah, blah. And then the Godfather's like, okay, I'll help you this time. He's like, but I'm going to need you down the road. When I do, he's like, I might never need you. He's like, but if I do, expect a phone call, and you're going to have to help me out and do me a favor. So that's like the opening cinematic of the story. Then it goes to the wedding between Connie and Carlo. And after the wedding, it basically, the movie is set up
well,
to
hold
show
on.
you.
Wait. What I really like in that conversation that he has, I'm sorry that I interrupted you, is that he's like, I'm not gonna kill those. What do you want? Like, he says, I want justice. I want you to kill those guys. And he says, yeah, but your daughter is still alive, so technically that would have been justice, or would be justice if I would kill them. And then basically it's about, like, roughing them up eventually, and how he is, like, very much against, like, I'm not gonna kill.
Yeah, it's like, even though, like, I'm the Godfather, we got a moral code, we can't just go kill people because you want to do it, They roughed her up, we'll
That's
rough
the
them up.
misconception a lot of people have also with, the mafia, like, oh, if I just go there and tell them, can you kill this person for me? And, whenever you need something, I'll be there for you.
I don't know. I think you're right. I think I see what you're saying, but I think it all depends on the boss, right? Because, like, take Capone, for instance, right? He didn't give a fuck about anything. He would go off the handle and kill anybody. There was nothing logical about his technique. If he wanted something, he'd take it. So, like, I think a lot of people compare a lot of guys in the Cosa Nostra to Capone because they really think that everybody's like that. That's the stereotypical gangster, Al Capone. But like you just said, though, Corleone, even though he was a mob boss, he had a balance. It wasn't like he was going to go kill somebody just because somebody asked him. His motto was almost biblical, sort of. It was like, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Like, they beat your daughter up, I'll beat them up. But he wanted, like, reciprocity. Like, you don't
come to me with respect. I've known you for years,
Like, that whole scene was amazing because it's like, if that guy would have come to him with respect and been his friend for as long as he knew the guy, it was almost like he was using them. Like, you're coming to me because I have power. Pretty much what it is. And that's all you want. You just want my authority. You want my power. You don't really value me as a friend.
Yeah.
You value me because I'm a mob boss. And I can make people disappear if you ask me to.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what I meant in the beginning when I was explaining towards Keys. Yeah. That scene alone doesn't grab you. Just that conversation. I don't know what else will in this movie.
The whole point of that conversation I saw, that was a good point you brought it up, because it really defines, Vito Corleone's character. He's a man about loyalty, and he's a man about reciprocity, and he's a man who values his family and his friends. And he really meant that, like, when he told that guy at the beginning, like, you don't come to me, with respect, you don't even call me Godfather, like, you know me this whole time, and, like, you don't say shit to me until you want my services, pretty much. So, Yeah, that's an amazing, powerful scene. But the rest of the movie, I mean, it pretty much puts you in Vito's shoes throughout the entire thing. It's like the movie could have very well ended sooner rather than later if Vito would have accepted that narcotics deal, right? But he doesn't because he feels like it's not good for his business. He'll lose all his political influence with the judges and all the attorneys and whoever the police he's controlling will just back out because they don't want anything involved. Where the other crime families, the heads of the syndicate, are like, yes, drugs are the future. We need to get our foot in the door with narcotics and start doing stuff with narcotics. Where Vito's business was very old school. It was like the 1920s prohibition-esque kind of like mafioso. It was kind of like, we're going to sell hooch, alcohol, we're going to do gambling stuff, we're going to do women and that kind of thing, but we're not going to do any narcotics. Like, we can't do heroin and stuff like that. It's really bad. Like,
just like in real life with
yeah, exactly
families. That was also a big clusterfuck because a lot of the youngsters, such as Luciano and Gambino, they were like, we have these older people here that still live Cosa Nostra rules with the Sicilian way, but here we are in New York, the land of opportunity, and they're not taking it. So
basically what happens then is, after you get into the mind of and the life of Vito Corleone and you get introduced to his family, you see him as a family man, you see him as a mob boss, but also a really smart guy who is kind of a negotiator, who works out deals, who tries to get the best bang for his buck, so to speak. Like, I'm going to help people if they help me. Like, that's his philosophy. Like, I'll help you if you help me. But then it's kind of funny because, like, it's almost like his three sons are like bits and pieces of his personality, so to speak. Like, Fredo is like this really kind of like, he's Vito's very conservative. He can be conservative at times. Like, he won't take a deal if he doesn't think it's right. And Fredo's like the exaggeration of that. Like, he is afraid to do anything. Like, Fredo won't do anything. He's just like a sissy. He won't get involved in shit. Like, he doesn't want to do anything. Like, he's just not powerful enough. He's not strong enough. And then you have his eldest son, Santino or Sonny. Yeah, Santino or Sonny, who's like a really hot-headed, like, he's the very dark side of Vito. Like, what Vito would do to get back at somebody who did something to him. He's a very angry. He has anger issues, Santino.
And obviously the best brother you could have.
Yeah. And then
from a female point of view.
Yeah. And then I mean, he stands up for his sister Connie because Carlo's beating her and shit. I mean, but sadly,
that's also this fucking awesome scene. Still with the wedding, still in the beginning, where Santino or Sonny, he is basically cheating on his wife on the wedding of his sister, and Vito is looking for him, and then Hagen finds him, and he walks in, and I don't know who he tells it, but he's like, a real man always takes care of his family, which is basically him acknowledging the fact, like, hey, I know that you're screwing around, you are cheating on your own wife, but the way that it happened, it's so fucking smooth. Like, in those days, basically, women and children were never touched in any way. Like, you do not cheat on them, because if you cheat on your wife, you would also cheat on the family.
Exactly. And that's, that brings me to Michael then, where Santino's like this really animalistic side of Vito's character, and Fredo's a more conservative, Freddy or Fredo, whatever you want to call him, is a more conservative side of Vito. Michael's like Vito's brain, and like he's the balance. And that's why he becomes the Godfather, because he really is, out of all three sons, the best suited to take up the mantle after Vito. So
I love that also during the wedding scene, how he's like peeking through the blinds just to see Michael. Like, Michael isn't here, I'm not going to do it. Like, he knows.
Well, yeah,
he later says, like, I know Santino would never be the good follow-up, but.
Well, he says that too. Like, when he says that later, what happens is, because Vito Corleone turns down the deal for the drugs with the other crime family, and what was the guy's name? Soloso?
Yeah.
He turns it down. Yeah. He turns it down, this deal, and he refuses. So basically, they want to seek vengeance on Vito for not joining them because he has all this political influence. So Fredo, they go to this market. Vito gets out to go get like some oranges, and he's getting them in a bag, and he's going to the car, and then Soloso sends these men, and they shoot him like 5 times. So that's kind of where the transition of power starts to happen. Vito survives this gunshot stuff, but Michael and Sonny and, Fredo start to like consolidate and be like, okay, listen, we don't know if Dad's gonna be able to do this anymore. People want him dead. We need to start stepping up and doing something to help out the family, right? So Sonny gets his hand in it first because he is the eldest, so he thinks he's the one who deserves to be the Don. But like I said, he's too hard-headed.
Instead of thinking.
Yeah, he's too hard-headed. He reacts to everything. He doesn't think about anything. And like Sana said, Michael's the best suited because he thinks things through. Like he actually has a plan for shit. He plans stuff. And it's funny because it's almost like that saying you hear, like, sometimes the person you think who's the most unlikely will be the one who assumes the mantle. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like J.R. Tolkien, like The Hobbit. Hobbit, they never did anything. They had this hole and they just sat there. They never went on any adventures. And then all of a sudden, Bilbo Baggins becomes the story of the hero of the entire story. It's kind of like the same thing with Corleone. Like, he doesn't want anything to do with the family. He doesn't want anything to do with his father's business affairs. But at the end of the day, he becomes his father. He becomes the hero.
Perfect example again at the wedding. Sorry for interrupting you once again, but at the wedding where he's like telling Kay like, oh, that's Luca Brasi, and he's like telling everything like, yeah, but that's my family, Kay, that's not me. And then later on, like talking to a wall.
Absolutely. It's like
he's the total opposite. It's like a whole duality that you see going on.
Exactly. Michael we have the luxury of seeing all 3 Godfather films, right? And even reading the books. So, like, initially Michael didn't want anything to do. He joins the service as a Marine in World War II. He fights in World War II in the service. He wants to be like a regular citizen. He doesn't want anything to do with this lifestyle. But like Sana's saying, it's funny how you see him just do a 180 because a lot of bad shit happens to him. Like, they try to kill his father. Like, they try to assassinate him just because he's a Corleone. And when all this stuff happens, he starts to realize, like, okay, like, I can't escape my namesake. I'm a Corleone. Like, I have to. He realizes it. Like, there's no way I'm ever going to get out of this because of my father and who he is. Yeah, so, like, and it's an awesome thing, but throughout the rest of the movie, it kind of shows you after Vito gets shot, the rest of the movie kind of shows you how Michael Corleone starts to head down this path and do that flip from being like this civilian who doesn't want to get involved with the family to pretty much becoming the head of the family and then being actually, in some instances, more ruthless than his father ever was. So like...
But that's also because of all the snitches in the family,
Exactly.
It's being destroyed from the inside out. It's...
Yep.
What would you do?
And that's it. Like I said, I don't blame him. But at the same time, if you watch the 3rd movie, he has regrets for some of the shit he does, and it's kind of like, oh man, but he had to do it at that point in time because it's what he thought was right for his family at that point in time. So it's a really awesome movie. I mean, do you have your scene yet? Do you know what you want to talk about? What's your scene?
Well, my scene, I already told you before, is at the hospital where he goes to visit his father, and all the protection has suddenly disappeared, and Michael is like calling Santino, Sonny, and he's like, there's no one here. Dad's alone. And he's like, I'll take care of it. Stay calm. I am calm. And he, and basically a nurse walks in. He's like, okay, we have to move my dad to another room. But before all that happens, he basically like grabs his dad's hand and he's like, I'm here now, Dad. Everything's gonna be okay. I'm with you now, and basically kisses his hand, and that's like.
Yeah, and Vito kind of like smiles too. He's laying there with like this.
Yeah, but you see also this tear, like you see the wet
tear. He's kind of like. Yeah, but it's great because Michael, like we said, he's the planner. That scene is amazing too because there's nobody in the hospital. This guy is Don Vito Corleone. Okay. He has all the muscle in this city. But what happens is another crime family owns the police force. So they come and they get the police to boot all these bodyguards out of the hospital because they're saying they can't have that many people in the hospital because of health regulations and all this kind of stuff. Like it's too crowded for him to be in the room with all these people. So all these bodyguards leave when Michael gets there. And now Santino's the head of the crime family, like Sana said. So Michael calls and he's like, where the hell's all the goddamn bodyguards at for Dad? And Santino's like, I'll send some people over now. There's nobody over there. So he tells the nurse, he's like, listen, there's people coming to the hospital right now to kill my father. We need to move him out of this room into a secure place. So, like, he convinces the nurse to help him wheel Vito Corleone's bed into, like, this room that has, like, a big steel door on it so they can, like, lock it and stuff so nobody can come in. So you see this. Yeah, it's awesome. Like, you see Michael just, like, freaking out, like, peering out over the window, like, to see if anybody's coming up to get his dad.
You hear footsteps, you know.
And you hear footsteps. You're like, shit, somebody is coming to kill his dad. And all of a sudden, it turns out to be Enzo, this baker who, like, his dad helped out before, gave him, like, money to do stuff. And he brought his dad, like, a bouquet of flowers. So he tells Enzo, he's like, Enzo, go wait outside. He's like, I'll be out in a minute or whatever. And he says goodbye to his father and all this stuff. He goes outside and waits out front on the stairs of the hospital with Enzo, this baker. And he makes Enzo pretend he has a gun in his pocket. And he was right. Michael's right. Because then this car rolls up right in front of the hospital stairs. And there's like 5 or 6 mafia from this other family who are going to come in to kill Don Vito. But they can't because it's in a city street and there's people around. And they're out there acting like they have guns in their pockets, like they're going to shoot them if they try to come up the staircase. So they just drive off. And then by that time,
so cool.
By that time,
like he really just throws the bouquet away, you know, the bunch of flowers.
Yeah,
like, just don't be shit, But you know, he will remember, you know, like I will remember that you were there for my father and you helped him out.
Exactly. But then you find out later what happens is after that scene, McCluskey, this leader of the police force in New York, he's the captain. He comes up and tries to arrest Michael for just being there. And he's arguing with Michael and all this stuff. And the police are like, you can't arrest him, sir. He's a war hero. And then he gets 2 police officers to hold Michael in place, and Michael doesn't retaliate. At this point, he's still in that civilian mindset, sort of. He doesn't want to get involved with this shit. But then the officer decks him right in the face and, like, breaks his jaw. Like,
but that's also because he really insults him, but, like, how much are they paying you?
Well, he's right, though. Like, it's not like he's lying, though. Like, he knows. And then what happens is, like, they form this thing. As soon as the officer decks him, like, the consigliere and a bunch of guys from the Corleone family roll up in another Cadillac, you know, and all these guys jump out, and the consigliere goes over to McCluskey, and he's like, these are private detectives sent here to protect Don Corleone. If you interfere with this and you tell these guys to go home, you're going to have to say it to the judge in open court tomorrow morning. And the officer's like, shit. And he's like, fuck. So he's like, all right, let him go. And then they take Michael back to the Corleone house, and then they start to this is when you start to see Michael get, like, really, really smart, because at this point in time, Santino thinks he's still in charge. But you can slowly see how Santino's anger is starting to get the best of him. He's like, we're going to go out there and kick their asses. We're going to kill all of them, blah, 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 blah. And Michael's like, no. He's like, they want me to meet because I'm a neutral guy. They think you're too hot-headed. I'll go meet this guy who wants to do the drugs. And then they realize that McCluskey is his bodyguard. This drug dude. And
also that how the camera starts going closer to Michael, and he's, like, sitting there in the chair, like, no, I will meet him. Nobody will be there, and we know this place, right? You got people around that can plant a gun.
Yeah, Michael comes up with the idea. Like, he's the one who's like, listen, I'm gonna go there alone. He's like, but they're gonna frisk me. He's like, so what we need to do is plant a gun. Michael comes up with all this. And then Robert Duvall's character, I can't think of his name, plays the Hagen, yeah. Basically, his name's Tom Hagen. He was Santino's, like, friend as a kid, but apparently he was like a street rat. Like, he didn't have any family or anything. So Don Vito takes him in and pretty much raises him as his own son. He goes to law school and becomes a lawyer, and he becomes consigliere for the family. And then later, you'll see he becomes Michael's, you know, again. Later.
Yeah, also his emotions, you know, like you see Hagen sitting there when Michael is telling all this, like, this kid is now going to be part of it, but also like
He's like, oh yeah.
is this Don Vito Jr.?
Yeah, but I think it really is though. I really do think it is.
Getting more comfortable. Sorry for the camera movement.
Getting a little excited over Alfredo Pacino. Yeah.
Oh, because I can lean my feet on the thing.
Sorry about the camera, guys. Al Pacino. Wow. No, you're right. I mean that's an amazing scene. The way he shot that is so it makes you really believe that. They're like what you just said. It really makes you believe that, like, you know, Tom Hagen
really being drawn in, like, oh my God, this guy's gonna
like,
change it.
Michael is gonna be the guy. So after the whole thing happens, and like Sana said earlier, they go to this meeting at the restaurant. It's a neutral place. You find out McCluskey is the bodyguard to this guy who wants to do the narcotics deal. And then Michael gets up to take a piss. He's sitting there bullshitting with the guys. They frisk him in the car before they go to this place. They act like they're going to take him to New Jersey and kill him, but they're like, oh, no, never mind. We're just joking. And they turn around and go back to the restaurant.
Which is usually the case when, a family invites you to go for a ride.
Exactly. So they want to see if he's going to freak out or pull anything is what they're trying to do. Trying to scare Michael into, like, flipping out and doing something he wouldn't do, because they know Santino would have did something at that point. But Michael's cool and calm and collected, and he's just like, we going to Jersey? And the guy's like, oh, no. When he just, like, flips the car across the bridge and goes back over, I think it's the Brooklyn Bridge, goes back over the Brooklyn Bridge or something, back into the city.
I want to walk over that bridge one day.
I have. It's legit. It's legit. But when they do that,
it's legit.
It is. They go to the restaurant, and the gun's planted. Michael gets up. He's like, can I please go take a piss? He finds the gun, and the one, what's the guy's name who taped it all for him? I can't think of his name. He's a captain
Yeah.
I can't think of it, but he installed a gun there for him. Michael puts it in his pocket, and right before he went to the bathroom, this guy who was trying to do the drug stuff frisked him again just to make sure there was no gun. So he walks out, all calm and collected, walks back to the table, smiling sort of, and sits down. And he doesn't shoot him right away. He waits. He's sitting there just like bullshitting with him. And I think it's like a train or a subway or something goes by, and it makes noise. So like when it makes noise, that's when he goes, boom, he reaches for the gun. He shoots the guy who basically tried to kill his father and send those people after his dad, and they kidnapped Tom Hagen too to negotiate the deal to get Michael there in the first place. And then he turns and kills McCluskey too, and then he throws the gun.
The eyes of him when he's sitting there, like stressed out in a way, but also the cold-blooded killer is coming out of him. Like there's no way back. They have to die.
But that's also, it's funny too, because Francis Ford Coppola, I believe, was also in the military, and I think he served in World War II. And I think it's funny how Michael's character is kind of, or maybe it wasn't Coppola, maybe it was Puzo, maybe it was actually Mario. I think it was Coppola. But it's funny how that stuff kind of emanates from his character. Like I said, the guy directing the movie and the guy who wrote the book really relate to the characters. Like, it's really authentic for them. It's like they're putting themselves into these characters and into this movie in a way. It's like, but I think that cold-blooded killer, like you said, was, I mean, Al Pacino's character, Michael Corleone, was a Marine in World War II. He was a killer. Like, he killed people probably in war. They never tell you that, but like, you can assume by watching the movie, like, this guy was a veteran. He's a war hero, you say it. So really, for him too, who's better for the job? If you're looking at it from like a, an advantage standpoint, this guy was a Marine in World War II. Who's better for the job? Who's better to be the Don than this guy? But it's kind of like Sana said, you can just really see his animalistic instincts come out and like really start to turn into the Don. From that point forward, what happens is Michael has to go to Sicily because he needs to be protected, because they're trying, obviously stuff's coming up. These two guys got killed, the police guy and the guy from the thing. And then they send Fredo to Las Vegas for protection, because Santino's running the show right now. And then Michael's life starts to get really shitty. Not so much for Fredo just yet, but Michael's life starts to get really shitty and he's over in Sicily. He has these 2 bodyguards. What happens is there's a Don over there who's from Sicily, who was a friend of Vito Corleone, because Vito Corleone was from Sicily, and he came to Ellis Island and went to, like my grandparents, they came to Ellis Island and they went to New York first and they moved to Pennsylvania. It's kind of like the same thing with him. Like, Vito comes, you'll see in the second movie if you guys ever get a chance to watch it, or if we ever do it on here,
Probably.
Vito comes over, and
Oh,
anyway,
gosh.
Don Tomasini over in Sicily is this guy's name, and he's limping, and you don't know what it is until the second movie. You don't know why he's limping, but he's pretty much watching Michael over in Sicily. So while all this stuff back home in New York gets sorted out about these 2 people getting killed, because they don't want to pin the charges on Michael. They want to try to make the charges disappear before Michael comes back into the country. Then they send Fredo to Las Vegas for protection because they don't want anybody to retaliate and kill him. So they send him over there to like this casino. When Michael's in Sicily, like, these 2 bodyguards they're really cool to him at first and all this stuff. They come across this like girl who's with a bunch of kids, like walking down this beautiful shot in Sicily somewhere. I don't even know where it's at, but it's gorgeous. And like Michael's shocked. Michael's shocked, and he's like, ooh, at the sight of this girl, this Italian girl. He's like, ooh, wow, yeah, ooh, ooh.
Oh, wait. Hoo-ha.
Hoo-ha. But yeah, then what happens is Michael he gets these 2 bodyguards to translate for him because they're talking to this guy, and this guy ends up being the girl they saw earlier's father. And he's all pissed off at first, like, there's no girl here such as that. Get out of here. Get out of my house. Get out of my fucking town. Blah, 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 blah. And Michael's like, listen up. Yeah. Michael doesn't mean, he's like, Michael starts to get these guys to translate for him. And he's like, I don't mean to offend you. He's like, I'm an American. I'm hiding out here in Sicily because of stuff back home. He's like, listen, I don't want to make enemies with you. He's like, how about, he's like, if you report me as a runaway American, bad stuff's going to happen to your family. He's like, so how about instead of gaining an enemy, your wife gains a husband, which would be me, right? Michael Corleone. He's like, I basically want to marry your daughter.
Oh, fucking genius, actually.
It is.
So,
yeah, it just shows, it really shows Vito's personality too, because he's a smart guy. Like, he's negotiating with this guy. Listen, man, I want to work out a deal with you. Let's be reciprocal here. I'll marry your daughter and get her out of this town and give her a really good life if you don't rat me out and say I'm here. It's like the reciprocity thing, like his dad does. So, like, that's when you really start to see him again using his mind to create these deals and to work out all this stuff. He ends up marrying this girl, and then the one bodyguards guy, his name is Fabrizio. So he's like, Fabrizio, go get the car for me. He's teaching his wife he marries over in Sicily how to drive. So she's like driving. In the meantime, Don Tomasino comes back and says, hey, look, I got some bad news from America. He's like, something happened with your brother. So what happened was, we talked about it before, how Carlo was beating Connie Corleone, which would have been Michael, Fredo, and Sonny's sister. Carlo's beating her, and Sonny warns him one time. He confronts him like at this, he's sitting on like these stairs, like playing, like making bets with these people, and Santino rolls up in this car and gets out and starts beating the shit out of Carlo. He's like, you hit my sister again. He's like, I'll fucking kill you, blah, blah, blah. And he drives away. Well, then, after that incident happens, it flashes to Connie in this apartment complex where she lives with Carlo. Connie picks up the phone, and there's a girl on the phone, and she's like, hey, who's this? And she's like, oh, blah, blah. And she's like, can you please tell Carlo that I won't be able to make it tonight? I'm going to have to cancel my plans. Basically, it was a girl that Carlo was going to go out and have sex with and cheat on his wife with, and she gets all pissed off. So she's like, hey, dinner's ready. And he's like, I don't want any dinner. I'm hungry right now. He's like, I'm going to go out and get something to eat. She's like, you just told me to make dinner. What do you mean? So she starts freaking out and smashing all this stuff in the house.
Yeah.
And Carlo's like, go ahead, smash it, smash it, smash it. Then he turns into a real dick and takes his belt off, and he's like going around hitting her with a belt. Like, you want to smash it, blah, blah. He's like, you're just a rotten, spoiled brat, blah, blah. He's hitting her. And he takes her into the bathroom, and then the door closes, and you can just hear her crying. Like, you know he's beating her in there, right? So then it flashes to Sonny picking up the phone, and it's Connie. Or actually, it's his mother on the phone. There's a baby crying, and then she hands the phone to Sonny because she can't hear Connie screaming. And then basically you don't hear the conversation, but Connie tells Sonny he's hitting me again. Like, he really hit me bad this time. He's beating me with a belt, blah, blah, blah. Sonny's like, that son of a bitch, blah, blah. He hangs up the phone, and he rushes over to try to basically, you assume that he's going to kill Carlo for beating his sister. But he has to go through a toll booth. So Tom Hagen sends another car after Sonny because they know he's a hothead and they don't want him to do anything stupid. So he goes to this toll booth and he's getting ready to pay the fee. So he goes to hand the toll keep, like the fee to get through because they have the barricade down. You can't drive through. The toll keep goes to take the quarter and then he just closes the window. And then all of a sudden you see Sonny going like, what the hell? And all these people from the crime family come up out of all these like closed off toll booths with submachine guns, Thompson SMGs, and they just start, what's up, Sean? And they just ice Carlo, or not Carlo, excuse me. They ice Sonny right there in the middle of the toll booth. Like, he gets out of the car, he's shot, and they just
so bad and so sad.
He's done. Like, he's done. And that's the news that Tomasini relays to Michael over in Sicily. And when they hear that, when Michael hears that, he's like, and his wife is in the car like, come on, you promised me you'd take me for a drive. So that's when he goes up and he has to think, and he's like, he's trying to get back to America at this point. He's like, oh shit, I need to get back because like I need to seek vengeance or whatever. So
yeah, but he's like, it's no longer safe for you here, so you have to come to my villa and
exactly
now no one can be trusted.
Yeah, because Tomasini tries to move him to another villa because they know he can't be trusted. Well, here it turns out this guy Fabrizio, he asks to go bring the car up. Fabrizio goes and brings the car up because he's getting ready to go to this new villa. Michael heads down to meet his wife in the car. His wife is already in the car. This Sicilian woman he met over there, Apollonia, who he had. Yeah. Like, let's go. Come on, let's go. So he looks over, and Fabrizio, his bodyguard, is like walking away from the car, like out this gate. And he's like, Fabrizio, where are you going? And then there's like this scene where Michael looks over at the car, like really slowly, and he sees like Apollonia, like, let's go. And all of a sudden his car bomb goes off, and poof, the car blows up, and his wife that he just married over in Sicily is killed.
He is so fast with thinking, you know, like he just has to look at you and like, hey.
Yeah.
No, you do not know.
Like, he knows at that point when he sees Fabrizio walking out the gate that like he's a traitor pretty much. So he knows like shit, And then after that, it kind of goes back to America and how, Michael ends up moving back and then pretty much like slowly taking over the business and how he's developing into the Dawn and all this kind of stuff. And he reacquaints himself with his girlfriend, Kay, who
so
went
weird.
back with her parents. It's a really like it's like a 3-hour movie. Like, it's a long movie and a lot of stuff happens. But if you do take the time and sit down and watch it, like, it's a masterpiece. Like, it's a master class in a movie. It's amazing. All the actors are amazing. There's not one person in here who's miscast. Fucking Abe Vigoda is in it. It's amazing.
He got the double taps again. All the actors, yes. Like, I was watching some of the commentary, and basically a lot of people, they didn't have not any acting experience, Francis was like, just come on in. And again, the wedding scene, hold on. I have gum in my mouth. I'm so annoying. Like an hour later. Luca Brasi, right? I really like this one. So he has to go acting against Marlon Brando, and he was so fucking nervous. And what he said, Coppola, was that Marlon Brando had a note on his head saying "fuck you." So the guy that plays Luca, he's really nervous because first of all you have Marlon Brando there, and also you have to stay serious. But here is Brando like pulling pranks on everyone, and he basically starts to fuck up the scene, and that's where Francis was like, you know what? We just shot it. Let's now go to the backyard and you go practice it over and over again, so we can just pretend it was the nerves taking over.
But it's great because they kept that shit in the movie.
Yeah.
Because there's a scene in the movie, like someone was saying earlier at the wedding when Michael's introducing all the people to Kay, his girlfriend. Luca Brasi sitting there and he's like, Godfather, I am so gracious and thankful that you invited me to your daughter's wedding. And he just keeps repeating it. Godfather, Vito Corleone, I'm so grateful and thankful that you invited me to your daughter's wedding. He just keeps saying it over and over again. Actually, there's a scene that's actually cool that he kept it in there because you can almost see like Al Pacino like kind of smirking about it because he knows like secretly like that's why they kept it in the movie. And he's actually telling Kay, Diane Keaton's character, is talking to Michael because Luke is sitting like right behind him. And she's like, is that guy crazy? He keeps repeating himself. And it's just like you can hear like Lucas saying like, Don Corleone, I'm so gracious and thankful you invited me to your daughter's wedding. He just keeps saying it over and over again. And Al Pacino's just like smiling. He's like, yeah, that's Luca. You know, it's funny. But
yeah, I think that's so cool that, especially in those days, because nowadays, well, those days also you had to be like a Lee Strasberg student or whatever, who is awesome in part 2. But the fact that he gave people a chance that had no experience in acting, and some even blew up afterwards. I think that's pretty cool. And how he rolled with it. If things didn't work out, like, okay, we'll just twist it a bit. And just like that scene, I thought it was really interesting when I was like, wait, what? Like the fact that someone can get it right, because of course, Intimidated, you got fucking Brando in front of you. But then, okay, let's just make another scene where you're just trying to practice, in order to make things right, and then put it in front so you still fuck up afterwards. Awesome.
Look, I'm very thankful for your friendship. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, my friend.
I love it so much. I love Brando.
Yeah.
He's so great.
You're a trusted friend, Luca. Thank you so much.
The kitty.
Hey, look, I'm a pop figurine. It's crazy. How about it? Crazy, huh?
The kitty being improvised, walking on set, and he just tossed it to Brando, and the kitty and Brando were connecting.
Son Angelina, you show me great respect by presenting a pop figure to everybody, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh gosh, that Angelina song that I had to listen to a lot when I was younger. I had antipasti twice just because she is nice, Angelina.
No, but I actually, one time I went, because I live close to Pittsburgh, I actually auditioned to be an extra in a movie one time, and it was like to be a pretty much like an Italian gangster. I obviously didn't get it or anything. I didn't get the part, but like, because I was so nervous, but like, it comes natural to people like that. Like you said, a lot of these guys didn't have acting experience, like Gianni Russo, the guy who played Carlo Rizzi. He didn't have any acting experience. He was just a guy who lived that life, and he knew what it was like. So it was really easy for him to like pretty much like really be himself in the movie. I could see him actually doing that in real life, like actually being himself, like that character.
I told you this before, but did you actually see his recent interviews that he's doing? He is such an interesting character. He is like, I was Marilyn Monroe was my girlfriend. That stuff that happened, yeah, I was the reason behind it. Oh, I was like bringing this envelope of money to that big gangster.
He told me that story. He actually, when I met him like a couple years ago, he did tell me that story. Like he would take the money in the envelopes and take them to people. Like I never watched any of the videos. He actually told me that like to my face. I showed Sana a picture of me with Gianni Russo in Little Italy. Like I have my arm around him, like it's really him. Like it's Carlo Rizzi from the movie. Like I've actually talked to the guy, like nicest dude ever, but
I would hug him too.
It's amazing. Like he actually lived that though. Like that's what's so cool. It's so authentic because it's real. Like it really is real. That's what makes this movie so powerful. And like I said, it's just like it's amazing. It's amazing to watch it.
It's also interesting because it's allegedly like this true to the core Sicilian family, blah 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 blah. Yet they're singing a Napolitano song on the wedding. I don't know. That's mare.
Yeah, which isn't really Sicilian, but
it's a Napolitano.
Yeah.
I have both of them. So one of the first Funkos that I got, I was like, oh, my reason of living. Ooh.
Hey, you got here's a New York accent for you. Hey, you got a little bit of the Michael Corleone, huh? Yeah, forget about it. Hey, where's Fredo, huh? Where's Fredo Corleone's pop action figure, huh? Where's Santino, huh? Where's Johnny Fontaine, huh?
Just get a Frank Sinatra one and put it next to
Frank Sinatra's. I'll say this: like we talk about metal and stuff, and how I love metal music. I love Frank Sinatra. And
I'm more a fan of Dean Martin.
I like Dean a lot, but I like Frank. I like Tony Bennett too a lot. I mean, those guys are legendary. My grandma, my grandfather used to play the shit out of them. I listened to them my entire childhood.
What's his name again? He's also awesome. He did the song Angelina. I identify just because she is. What the fuck? And he also do a. What the fuck is your name?
Who knows?
Louis Prima. You don't know it? It's from the same era.
Never listened.
Look
Never
it
listened.
up.
I just.
We will do the crooner music thing one day, I guess.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Frank is amazing. I love Frank so much. I'm not saying he was the greatest guy, but his voice, it's like butter.
Also,
His
some of the
voice
movies
is
that
butter.
he did. Like, what was it? Ocean's 11? I remember it's with Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and what's his name again?
Sammy Davis Jr.
Yes.
The Rat Pack, baby. Of course.
Yeah. I remember I downloaded that movie once, and I was like, "Come on, let's watch a movie." And she was like, "Oh, I remember this." I was like, "Yeah, you're old," and now everything that I watch is like people like that's old. I'm like, I don't think so, Dora. Like that's from my fucking youth. But then also now saying Godfather 50 years ago, I'm like, when I saw
Hold on a second. Hold on.
20 years ago.
It's not 50 years ago yet. It's 48. So, not quite 50. But it might as well be 50, right? Let's round up.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 2022, it'll be 50. But yeah. This movie, too, has influenced...
Who will still be alive by then?
What's that?
Who will still be alive by then, right? Because they all are pretty old right now.
Well, Abe Vigoda just passed away like a couple years ago. I think 2016. He was 94.
Yeah, but Pacino is hitting that age. James Caan is hitting that age.
Yeah, they are. They are. I mean, even De Niro too. I know we're only talking about the first movie, but he's getting old too.
Clint Eastwood, like he is almost like what, 110?
He's getting old. He's probably in his late 80s, early 90s, something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, that whole generation is going to go away pretty soon. Just like how we talk about like those gangsters from technically 100 years ago. It's like,
oh, absolutely. But I think this movie is like it really defines that kind of genre of what we're talking about. I mean, it influenced a lot of stuff that would come after it. I mean, we were talking about Boardwalk Empire the other day, that TV series. That series. I mean, The Sopranos TV series. I mean, yeah, there it is. I mean, Dom Chianese. Dom Chianese is in The Godfather too. He plays the main villain guy in The Godfather too. He plays Uncle June in The Sopranos. The same guy. Dom Chianese. I mean,
cool.
He is amazing. Did you ever see the TV series Magic City with Jeffrey Dean Morgan? It's about Miami, Florida, and the nightclubs and stuff down there with Sinatra. It's about gangsters. Did you ever see that? You never saw Magic City?
No, I mean, we don't get a lot of shit. I mean, the only thing that is constantly repeated on here is like the NCIS stuff and the other one, Law and Order or something like that. That's constantly on TV, and The Bold and the Beautiful.
Well, Magic City, I think, was a Starz or a Showtime original series. I think it was only 2 seasons or 3 seasons. I have it on Blu-ray. It's awesome.
Okay, pass it through.
What? Pass it through?
Yeah, pass it through, and I'll give it back. Yeah, but it's the same thing with Boardwalk Empire. I remember, I think it was like, what, 2011 or something? 2010? I don't know. But it was announced, I mean, those days that we still, or at least I was still buying those TV magazines to see what the fuck was coming on TV. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, Boardwalk Empire. Also with Martin Scorsese produced and all these actors. And I was sold, of course, when it says like Lucky Luciano. But I was like, damn, but that only one season, I believe, aired on TV here, and then that was it. So also with, for example, a dumb example like Agents of Shield, there was only one season on here, and then it's pretty much done. So we're either in luck or out of luck.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But Louis, what Louis say? Louis said a Bronx Tale. That's funny you mentioned it because I just told Sana yesterday how I was telling Sana earlier today too that like my grandfather, like I mentioned earlier, didn't really want to expose me to this stuff because he didn't want me to, because I was Italian. He didn't want me to think that like Italian people were criminals. Like,
Okay, I'm inspired. No, is this how I can get quick money?
yeah. Well, my grandfather's brother was actually in the organized Cosa Nostra stuff years ago. His older brother, my great uncle, it would have been. But I never really was close to him. I think I met him like one time. I never really talked to him. But my dad would always tell me stories. Like every time he came to the house, he would give all the kids. And my pap had 6 kids. And he would give all the kids like hundreds of dollars. Like, hey, buy yourself something nice. Just hand it out like nothing, you know? And my pap didn't really want to expose me to that kind of stuff. So like I never really got close to that. But my pap reminds me of, like Louis brought up, Bronx Tale, of Robert De Niro's character, the bus driver in the Bronx, where, you know, his son, C. Calogero, gets employed by Chaz Palminteri to run like what Johnny Russo did, run money and run this and run that. And De Niro doesn't want his son to get into that. It kind of reminded me of kind of like the relationship with my grandfather and how he pretty much took his kids away from that, like my aunts and uncles and my dad, and like his grandkids, which would have been me and my brother and my cousins, you know. He didn't want us to get exposed to that kind of stuff. So, and that's kind of why, because my pap lived in New York for a while, but he came up here because he didn't want to be around that kind of stuff. So like, got away from it. So it's kind of neat. It reminds me of that Bronx Tale story where like De Niro's like, I want my son to make an honest living. I don't want to be involved in this stuff, whatever. So, like I said, The Godfather to me, when I watched it, I told someone this earlier, is a really personal thing to me. Like it's a part of my life, you know. Like I experienced this kind of stuff as an Italian American person. You know, you don't realize it when you're a kid, but looking back on it, you know, when you're a teenager or in your 20s or you're an adult, you know, like even now, like watching it again, I was like, man, there's a scene in there. I was telling Sana where Don Corleone survives getting shot by this gang members, and he's outside and he's playing behind his house in this field with his grandson, which would be, I think it was Michael's son, one of Michael's kids, because I think Michael and Kay have 2 kids, and it's one of Michael's kids. And he's out there playing with them, and his grandson has like this weed killer, like this thing that you spray on the weeds to kill it or whatever, and Don Vito's just laughing and carrying on, and he takes an orange pill, and he's like, yeah, come here a second, I want to show you something. And he puts the orange pill in his mouth, and he goes like this to scare his grandson. My grandpa used to do shit like that to me and my brother all the time. So, like, he would run around with us and play with us and that stuff, but then, unfortunately, in the movie, like, Don Vito then is running around with his grandson, and he's hacking and wheezing, and he has a heart attack and dies. That's what happens to Vito Corleone, right? But prior to that, like that whole scene, like I watched it and I was like, man, it reminds me of my pap so much, because my pap used to do weird shit like that. He'd make weird faces and put shit in his mouth and be goofy, and we play in the backyard together and run around. And my pap had kind of like we live in Pennsylvania, but he had kind of like a New York accent. It was kind of like a Brooklyn sort of accent, like the way he talked. You know, he'd be like, hey, Giuseppe, come here, like, I want to talk to you. Like, that's how he talked, you know? And he'd curse in Italian and say stuff in Italian to my grandma. My grandma would say, hey, you know, manja, like eat, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, so when I watch that, like it is like a personal thing to me. Like watching that, it's like, oh. So I think for me too, that's kind of why I'm attracted to it, so to speak, too, because those people are Italian Americans, and I'm an Italian American. So like when I watch it, I'm not saying I want to be like them and I want to be a murderer and a killer and be the mafia. But the whole family component there exists as well, and it reminds me of me being a kid and growing up, and it reminds me of, and that's one thing in the movie too, that even though they're criminals and they do bad shit, they always say, you know, like, never turn your back on your family ever again. Like Fredo when he's in Las Vegas with that club owner. He basically sides with him instead of Michael when he goes there to make a proposition to acquire the club and the casino. And Fredo's like, no, Michael, what are you doing? What are you doing to Mo? Like, come on, what are you doing? And Michael corrects him after the Mo guy leaves, and he's like, never say that about your family again. He's like, never take sides against your family ever again. And it reminds me of that as a kid too, because family was so important to me growing up. Like my pap always made sure he could be sick as shit. He could be sitting there hacking and wheezing. He'd be like, hey, bring the grandkids over, bring the family over for dinner. I don't care if I'm sick, I don't want to eat. I just want to see my family. That's how he was. And even when my grandfather was like, on his deathbed pretty much, I mean, literally, he was in a wheelchair. He'd be like, bring the grandkids over. I want to see them. It didn't matter. It didn't matter to him. Like, family was the most important thing. And my grandma, too, like, the most important thing to them was making sure that their kids and their grandkids, like me, my brother, my cousins, all of us were happy, taken care of, and they showed us a good time. And they really loved us and cared about us. I mean, I hope that someday, if I ever have kids, I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope that I have the courage that like my grandpap had, because I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about that in hindsight, like the balls of that, like you're dying and you're like, I want to see my grandkids. Like, if that's not love, man, I don't know what it is. Like, you're literally dying and it's like, I just want to see my grandkids and my kids one last time. Like, that's pretty badass. So like for that, I've always loved my grandfather for that reason. He was a family man, first and foremost. His family was the most important thing. He worked on the railroad his entire life. Everything was about family. Everything. Nobody canceled on him either. Nobody was like, I can't come to dinner. He would call and berate you on the phone. Hey, what do you mean you can't come to dinner? Huh? What's going on? What's more important than your family, huh? And he would yell and scream at people.
He would probably come and pick you up. You're like, get in the car.
One of the greatest dudes I've ever met in my entire life. I love my pap so much. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was like 8 years old. But those 8 years, I can still remember them so much because he taught me so much in 8 years. Like all the stuff that I love, Star Wars, fantasy, fiction, all that stuff. He was the reason for that. He's the reason why I like film so much. I would sit there at his house and just watch movies. He just taped stuff. Just everything. My pap was so genius. He would sit there with the recorder, like VCRs first came out. He would record, and then when a commercial came on, he would stop recording. When the movie came back on, he'd hit start recording. Like, I mean, like hundreds of movies like that. They were just recorded from TV. Like the dude was so like so critical and very like organized and just like he knew everything. Like he was just so smart, like such a smart dude, right? And it reminds me of, I know I don't want to relate it to like Vito Corleone, but like kinda. The guy was really calculating. Like he was really particular. He really knew what he wanted to do. He was very organized crime. He was a very organized guy,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Also, as I said before with the wedding, when they all take a picture, it's like, where's Michael? Oh, Michael's here. Well, then I'm not taking the picture. See ya. And he just walks away.
Exactly. And that reminded me of my pap too. There's actually a picture at my parents' place hanging downstairs in the dining room. And whenever family comes over, if we're having like ravioli, gnocchi, whatever, we have a big Italian meal because my family's Italian. There's a picture of all of us there. And I can remember when that picture was taken, my Aunt Diana is like super late to everything. Like she's always late. She's just notorious for being late. And my pap was like, no. He's like, Tony, that's my dad's name, because my dad got a new camcorder and he had one of those tripods to take this picture. Like you could set a timer on it for like 10, 15 seconds and it would snap a picture. So my dad gets it all set up and everything. He's ready to take it. And I can remember my pap sitting there, like my pap sat at the head of the table because he was the Don, right? He was the head of the family. So he sits at the head of the table in the kitchen, and I can remember still being a kid. And he's like, hey Tony, he's like, no, he's like, don't set the timer yet. He's like, we gotta wait for Dad to get here. We gotta wait for Dad to get here, then we'll take the picture. It just reminds me of that so much, like watching that. That's a good point you brought it up because I just thought of that. Like,
yeah, but it's very important, of course, because if you put yourself in his shoes, he came to America with basically nothing and built everything, including the family. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But that goes for all the immigrants, of course, that came to America. But you always see a difference with particular cultures that it's just a tad bit different. Where the Dutch people are all like more like cold and distant, like bitch, piss off. Italians are like, allora, come here.
Hey, Giuseppe, come here. Give me a kiss. Hey, come here. Give me a kiss, Giuseppe.
Yeah, exactly that. Did you have enough food? Yeah, I'm stuck. Are you sure? No, I don't think she's full. Would you like some fruit? Would you like some?
Oh my goodness, I know. It's wow.
It never ends. It's the best thing. It's just like to agree and just be like, okay, and just leave it there rather than saying no, because like
I felt so bad for my grandma as a kid. Like looking back on it, how did she make that much food? There was like 30 of us in a room, and she's cooking for like all. It's insanity. Seriously, one woman. It was her. It was my grandmother. She made all the food for 30 people. Like, how do you do that? How do you do that? Like, it's insane. And it was amazing. Like the best food I ever tasted in my life. Best recipes of all time.
You know what's that called? That's called love.
It is.
Because a lot of people, they can cook for shit. They're like, how do you do it? Well, if you don't put love into cooking the food, then it will taste like shit.
But like you said, my grandma, hey, Giuseppe, come here. Lugula ditch. You have a lugula ditch, huh? But I'd eat it. Hey, you want some pasta vajol, huh? Like, yeah, give me some more. I mean, just a freaking vat of pasta vajol, like just a huge vat of it. I mean, and I would eat it. I can remember my mom would tell me the story. I'd go up to her like a spoon. Pasta vajol, you know, because I loved it so much.
And then dinner still had to happen.
Exactly. Back then.
Anything is pretty fucking good, like a good old fucking pasta, and of course with some red wine or pizza.
Gotta have a little bit of vino with your pasta, you know. You can't go wrong with vino. Yeah. If you're doing like a white, you know, like Alfredo sauce, you want to do like a white wine. You know, you want to do something heavy like red sauce, you get like a red wine. You know, heavy is heavy. You know, light's light. You know.
But yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, now I'm actually hungry too.
Back to the Godfather, right?
But it is connected because everything that you just said also happens in the movie, including the food. You see the women in the kitchen like really enjoying, like, ah. What I also really like, you know, the Brother of the Century award will go to Santino when they're all sitting at the dinner table. I think this is when Vito has returned. And her husband, I forgot his name, you know, Russo, he's like talking business. And then she's like, you know, Pops will never talk about business at the table. And he goes like, shut the fuck up or something like that. And the way that Santino right away goes, like when Russo comes back at him and he's like, we'll talk business around the table.
I think that was funny too, though, because that was a cool scene. I thought about that scene too, because it just shows you how like unhinged, and I get your point, but like to another point, it just shows you how unhinged Santino was, because Santino is basically sitting there talking about business. And then when Carlos says it, he's like, no, you can't say shit. Only I can say it. But then he's like, no one can say it at the table. Like he corrects himself. Like it just shows you how like unorganized he is up here. Like he's just letting his emotions and anger get the best of him. Whereas like Michael could be sitting there and be like, we're not going to talk business at the table. You know, you can see like this really calm, cool, collected versus like Santino, like he's like, the cops out there and the politicians are pieces of shit. He's like, we got these people up here driving Cadillacs that we're paying for, blah, 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 blah. And then Carlos like, yeah, what are we going to do about that? I need to talk to you about something. I think I could be more involved in the family. And he's like, don't talk business, blah, blah, blah. And he just talked business, you know? It's like,
yeah, but that was his desire. That's also why he became the snitch, because he thought, you know, marrying the daughter of the Don, he will probably get some fucking fancy ass house and stuff like that. The same thing goes for Fredo. You know, basically he gets sent to Vegas, and when Michael visits him, you basically already see what type of person he's like turning into. Like, oh, my name is Corleone and I can get away with everything or with anything that I want because I will be protected by the family. But, you know, Michael busting his balls, like, you see also, especially in part 2, which, oh my God, you know, the kiss of death.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. Don't even talk to me about Fredo. I cannot stand Fredo. I hate Fredo. I hate him. I hate Fredo with a passion. He's like, out of all the characters in the entire Godfather trilogy, the trilogy even, I can't stand Fredo.
Yeah, but also when he has that last conversation with Michael in part 2, where he's like, "You're my kid brother, man. Like, I'm supposed to be where you are standing now." It's just, oh man.
All that is to me is just jealousy, because he, like you said, that whole conversation in part 2 when he's like, "I'm the one who should have inherited the family. I should have got a shot at this. Sonny had a shot. You got a shot. They skipped over me." Basically, like, dude, they skipped over you for a reason because you're not cut out for this shit. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, but because Michael also kind of fucked with him, by you be in charge with Vegas, he really started to. Are we going to talk about part 2 now? Because oh my goodness, that moment when Michael finds out that it's Fredo,
I know.
oh,
it's depressing. I hate that. The reason I hate Fredo so much is this. I'll say this. I know people make mistakes, but like I said, it's part of my life. Like, that's how I was raised. Like, family is the most important thing. Me as a person, the family that was always there for me and looked out for me, I would do fucking anything for those fucking people. You know what I mean? Like, my brother, for instance, like, he's my only brother. I would do anything for that fucking guy. You know what I mean? Like, when you have somebody, when you have somebody like Fredo who betrays his fucking brother like that, I can't stand that. Like, that to me is like, fuck. And you can tell that Michael is like haunted by it, especially in part 3. He's haunted by that, what happens with that situation. And like, I feel bad watching part.
Oh my goodness, I'm just thinking of that one scene now where he goes to New York and he confronts one of the mafioso guy, like, yeah, they shot in my house with my children. Oh my god, like, he just, I love it when he screams. When he goes fucking apeshit like that, I'm like, this is a good movie.
Pacino, baby.
Yeah, scream at me.
See, like, it's like Louis said earlier, though. Like, I love Pacino, and I don't know. Like, I like Scarface as a movie a lot. I really love the movie. I think it's an amazing. It's an amazing movie. But for me, see, I see it the other way around. Like, I don't see him as Tony Montana. When I see Pacino, I see him as Michael Corleone. That's how I see him. Like, that's his. In my opinion, that's his ultimate rule. I don't think it's ever going to be topped. Like, anything he's ever done since then. It's been amazing. His filmography career is fucking amazing. He's one of the greatest actors of all time, period. But for me, when I see Pacino, it's Michael Corleone all the way. Like, Tony Montana.
So weird that he didn't win an Oscar for that. He did. I mean, he was great in Scent of a Woman, but if you have, especially Michael Corleone of The Godfather 2 next to it, it just blows the entire character away that he actually won an Oscar for. But, film critics, we cannot judge it. But, I think forever, unfortunately, but if he would pass away, it will be, the guy that played the Godfather and Scarface. Godfather will always be number one because he is fucking amazing. Because you have to understand that before the Godfather, he hadn't done that much. He did the Panic in Needle Park when he was just playing a junkie. And now he's like playing this fancy ass dude, right? And the suit and the brains and all that. But if you actually look at his interviews, he was actually, I have a book of him where he participated in, like, his autobiography type of thing, where it was basically like this big ass interview. But he was actually in real life also a really smart dude.
Oh yeah, yeah. The thing I want to say too about that, like, to go off of that point, is Pacino. The reason as an Italian American, okay, like me, Pacino is Italian. Like, he actually is.
He is Sicilian all the way, like his.
Yeah, Italian Sicilian. He's not Cuban. He's not Cuban. Tony Montana is Cuban. Like, I can't. In my head, I'm like, yeah, he's not really Tony Montana.
Well, technically, Scarface is supposed to be an Italian, right? But then, of course, they turn it into this Cuban thing because it made sense for that time. But still, because it's Capone.
Isn't it funny though how in the second movie, Godfather Part 2, he goes to Cuba and stuff, and there's Cuba stuff in there, and talk about Cuba, and then later he does Scarface and Cuba, and he's Cuban. Isn't that weird? What a coincidence.
Yeah, also that, a lot of the mafioso went to Cuba, and how Mayor Lansky was kind of like, Luciano was gone, but he was still like pulling a lot of the strings as a Jewish person, because Luciano was like, I don't give a fuck
Mm-hmm.
who you are.
Yeah.
A lot of people also go, like, ask sometimes, like, yeah, but I mean, if we get into the whole conversation of like, mafia, they're like, yeah, but they were always good with the Irish people. Like, yeah, because they were Catholics. That's the only connection. And they're just like, because they were Catholics. That's the only connection.
Yeah, I mean, I get that too, but like at the same time, I think it all depends on loyalty. Like we said, we talked about earlier, like with The Irishman, that movie that they were all in, Pacino, De Niro,
Yeah.
Ray Romano's in it. Even in Goodfellas, like the character that De Niro plays, Jimmy Conway, is half Irish, half Italian. So, and even Henry Hill, he worked with the Italian mafia because he was half of each. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I think it all depends on who your crew is, and it's all loyalty. Like who do you trust? Like even the consigliere played by Robert Duvall in this movie, he's German Irish. He's not even Italian. You know what I mean? But Don Vito just takes him in because of the loyalty aspect, the family aspect. I think it all depends,
But also a smart move, because he knows that he's not Italian. So if he would like support him, like become a lawyer, and you're not Italian, you are more believable for us. I mean, everything is a tech. Of course, there's love, but there's also a lot of like tactic moves.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think Don Vito did that because he just did it to be kind. I don't think it had anything to do with like you said, him trying to maybe like, let's just say for instance that his character was Italian.
But that's why I say, because he is not Italian, if they would have to go to court and you have a non-Italian lawyer, you're being taken, quote unquote, more serious, because otherwise it's like, yeah, but it's an Italian guy, an Italian lawyer. They probably ripped everybody off, but then here it comes. I mean, if you read a lot of those old books, there's a lot of times where as soon as there was an Italian involved, it's like, no, they're probably just all connected already.
And what are you trying to say, huh? Trying to make a no, I'm just kidding. No, I see what you're saying. No, but I think that's a good point. That is a good point. But what I was trying to say was, I think that Don Vito took him under his wing. It wouldn't have mattered if he was Italian, if he was German, if he was Irish, if he was whatever. I think he just felt bad for the kid that Santino was hanging out with, and he wanted to give him something. But. And he even says it in the movie too, because I think Santino says something when he's flipping out on him. He's like, "He's my father." He's like, "He's not even your father." And Tom's like, "As much a father to me as he was to you and Michael." That scene was cool too, because it was like, because really, let's talk about that for a second. Like Tom Hagen's character is like kind of underrated in this, because he's a really strong component for the fucking Corleone family. Like, he really does value that whole idea of family and shit. Like, he makes sure Santino's okay. He knows he's a hothead, but he makes sure that he's okay. Like, he makes sure that Fredo's okay. He makes sure that Michael's okay. Like, he almost looks out for the family as much as Don Vito does, to a certain extent. Yeah. And that's a real, like, that goes back to my point about loyalty. Like, he was so thankful that Don Vito took him in as a kid and provided for him and let him grow up and have a family and welcomed him with open arms into his family, that he would do anything.
Yeah, but also, Pacino, he really talks about it, at the end, where he basically says, Tom, you're out. And Tom's like, why? He's like, you're not a war consigliere. At this point, I trust the opinion of my father more, hence why he is becoming my consigliere. So, they really are, like, how do you say it, like the right hand?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are not really in charge. Like, the same thing is like with Mayor Lansky and Luciano. Like Luciano, he was the Italian that you were looking at, but it was Mayor Lansky. He was like the puppeteer that was taking care of all the dirty shit and the brain, in a way. No? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen.
No, I agree. No, I agree with you. I just think here's another thing I want to point out with that too is I think that when Michael took over at that point in the movie, he was tired of his brothers and his family getting killed and attacked, and he didn't want Tom Hagen. He didn't want Tom to be involved in that shit anymore. He was like, "This is fucking enough. Santino's dead. My dad's pretty much like losing his fucking mind. Fredo's over in Las Vegas. I want you to go over there and support him because I know that you'll take care of him, and I don't want you to
get." That's also explained in part 2.
Yeah, exactly. Part 2 obviously, develops it even more, but that's another story, right?
Tomorrow, no, I'm kidding. We're almost at 2 hours.
There's so much more to talk about the movie, though. I mean, like I feel like we've been talking for 15 minutes. Like seriously, like
it's like watching the movie itself. It's like what?
It is. Hours? It really is. The movie is absolutely amazing. Another thing too, like Francis Ford Coppola, like he is from Michigan. Like I think he was born and raised, like and grew up somewhere in like Detroit or something like that. But the Coppola family has this rich Italian like heritage. I think his dad was like a flutist and he played music on this movie, I believe. I think his dad.
He plays the piano also in the movie. You actually see him in the movie for a bit.
What's his dad's name? Carmine?
Yeah.
Carmen Coppola? I mean.
And his brother is the father of Nicolas Cage.
Yes. A lot of people don't know this. If you guys are watching this, Nicolas Cage is actually Nicolas Coppola. That's his real name. Like, he's actually, I think, isn't Francis Ford Coppola, isn't Nicolas Cage his nephew? Isn't Nick Cage Francis's nephew?
Yeah, the father of Francis, the brother of the father, he is the father of Nicolas Cage.
That's right, because isn't Nick's middle name Francis? Isn't it Nicholas Francis Coppola? Pretty sure.
I can't really remember that. But his debut was in a Francis Ford Coppola movie.
What movie was that?
Rumblefish. Fuck, I had to really scatter my face with Mickey Rourke and.
Oh my God, Mickey Rourke.
The black and white movie. Who's the other famous guy? Matt. No. Fuck it. Look it up. Rumblefish is pretty cool.
Did you ever see the movie The Pope of Greenwich Village with Mickey Rourke and Eric Roberts?
I think I have once because my mom was a big fan of Mickey Rourke, so I have seen a few of them. And then at one point, it's like, "Mom, I found this DVD with Mickey Rourke in it. Let's watch it." And so basically, it was like very awkward because what we were watching was 9.5 Weeks with Kim Basinger. It's got like the soft part is like, "Sorry, Mom."
But Mickey Rourke's in it, right?
Right? I was really excited. It's like, oh, I found a movie that I could watch with my mom with Mickey Rourke, and it was like, oh fuck.
My couple favorite films from Francis Ford Coppola, like I like his movies, but there's like I want to say like outside of the Godfather trilogy, there's 2 more movies that I think are just amazing that he directed, and the one is Apocalypse Now, that movie with Michael Douglas and Marlon Brando's in that too. Oh my God, that's an amazing fucking movie. And the second one that I really, really love is with Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves, and that's Bram Stoker's Dracula. That fucking movie is unbelievable.
Gary Oldman is also an actor that's just like
he's amazing.
Also when he starts screaming, it's like this is a good movie.
He's amazing. Gary Oldman's amazing. But like this movie like really propelled the careers of a lot of these actors too. Like I think Marlon Brando's career was like in decline, like in the late 60s and stuff. And then when he did this movie, like he got rejuvenated a little bit and did like a couple more movies. And I just mentioned Apocalypse Now. Like he's only in that movie for like 5 minutes, but it's like the best 5 minutes of acting ever that he did.
Yes, Tango in Paris. That was one of those.
That was one. Yeah, that was one after that.
It was kind of like, or at least for the film critic, it was kind of weird. Also, when later on you hear that the butter scene actually really happened, you're just like, oh, darling, it will be an honor. Please do no. Actually, I'm not kidding.
Amazing.
Oh, but he's such a pretty boy. But he was I mean, also, he had Brando such an unfortunate life. but also Montgomery Clift is kind of fucking amazing. Also very unfortunate, you know.
Yeah.
So we thought that with CinemAsian we will be booked for the next 5 years, but with this and the premiere that Joe will probably tell you soon about tomorrow, this is going to be another extra 15 years.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I know we were supposed to do Sonny Chiba Street Fighter today, and then we were gonna do Tony Jaa and Ong Bak tomorrow. But Son and I were talking, and it's not that we don't love CinemAsian because we do. That's still gonna be a show. We're still gonna do that,
Of
you
course.
know. But we were talking, and we just started talking about all these other things that we love, and it was like, you know, we think it's time to maybe just back off a little bit of CinemAsian and do something else. So I'll tell you about what we're gonna do tomorrow here, like right now, in a
He is really good in that.
Yeah, it is good. I mean,
Oh my god, now I want to watch Last Angle.
Marlon Brando is amazing. He's just an amazing actor, you know. But
So
movies and chill. Movies and chill is this show, right? So we have CinemAsian, we have movies and chill, and with this, what we're gonna do is kind of just like go through a bunch of different movies. It could be anything. We could pull from anything, but we're probably really obviously not gonna do anything Asian related on movies and chill. It's gonna be stuff outside of Asian movies. But we're also going to do tomorrow on my channel is going to be premiere of another show that we're doing because we talked about this on the Kung Fu Hustle stream, and we're calling this one Music and Chill. And what Son and I have decided to do is we're going to alternate. We're each going to pick a CD and a band or an album and a band for Music and Chill, and we're each going to do an album and talk about it tomorrow. But for the movies and chill, we're just going to do one movie. But then next weekend, we're going to alternate, and we're going to do the movie on my channel, the movie I pick, and then we'll do the music on her channel. But tomorrow, Sana, you're doing what album and what artist?
Well, we decided to do a Metal Gear because we were so in a fucking metal mood. I guess tomorrow we will have to wear our leather jackets again. If we're going to talk about metal, we should wear it. I chose one of my favorite albums, which is Ride the Lightning by Metallica.
Yeah, and I was going to choose that, but someone picked it already, so I was just joking. That's my favorite Metallica album. But I'm going to do this album right here. Does anybody know what that is? Anybody in the chat know what album that is? Come on. What is it? It's a more modern album. Nobody knows, right? It's Trivium's Silence in the Snow. And I think it's a cool contrast, too, and I'm really excited to do it tomorrow because Matt Hafey has said several times that Metallica was like his inspiration for this metal thing that he created with Trivium, and that James Hetfield is like his idol. So it's kind of cool to do Ride the Lightning, which is like a more classic album, and then like a modern album with Trivium to like compare and contrast. It's going to be kind of cool. And a reason I selected this was because I think it gets shit on a lot, and I think it's an underrated album, and I think everybody should listen to it. But I don't want to ramble on about this because we're talking about The Godfather. But that's tomorrow.
Yes, and it's not just going to be about metal because we also talk about, like I'll probably bring in Madonna or Bob Dylan or something K-pop for Joe to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with that because like metal's my favorite genre of music, but I listen to other stuff too. Like I just talked about Frank Sinatra. I just talked about, I like jazz too. I mean, like I like Louis Armstrong. I like Miles Davis. I like all that stuff too.
Actually,
I listen to that too. So
I'm gonna pick a couple of albums, and I'm gonna make your grandparents proud because I will fucking introduce you to fucking legends in the Italian music scene.
Oh, nice! I'm excited.
Well, you don't look excited.
Sorry, I had flatulence. I had to burp.
Oh, I'm excited.
You hear that, Pat? There you go. Italian music. Here we go.
When I was in Italia, I actually bought 2 records of one amazing female artist, or maybe you know her, maybe you don't, but I don't really want to tell who it is just yet.
Nah, let's just save it for tomorrow. Keep it a secret. Shh.
Yeah, but I think it's also cool, that with music and movies and chill that we're doing, we can go pretty much all around the globe. And also with with movies, we can also pick something European, as in Last Tango in Paris, because it's
Oh
basically
yeah.
a European production.
Yeah.
Or we can go to like the Italian horror stuff. And hold on, Stella. Oh my god, I'll be like,
Marlon Brando.
Stella. Oh my goodness, he was just. I really like that part, of course, where the two female characters are trying to figure out what his star sign is. Like, oh, but he's so bald, and he's probably an Aries.
I like that classic picture with Brando and like the sepia like filter where he's like wearing that leather jacket with that freaking rocking that like flat cap on, and he's just kind of like chilling like.
What is that movie called again?
I don't know if it was. I don't know,
Yeah,
but it's.
I have the movie. It's also a black and white movie. He's like on a fucking bike and shit.
Yeah, yeah. He has like he's rocking that cool like flat top hat or whatever, and he has the leather jacket on. I can't
Looking it
remember.
up.
But we all know his best role is Godfather, right?
Well, I mean, he was really good in that, but
So what you're saying is the Godfather's not my best role, huh? What's the best role,
I
huh?
also, well, it's not the movie, the black and white movie we were talking about, but I see he on the waterfront, which is also one of my favorite Brando movies. Well, the Wild One. That's the one.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. What else did? I mean, I watched so much of his shit. Guys and Dolls when he's fucking singing.
Legendary.
I also have that one on DVD. Oh my goodness.
Amazing. Marlon, baby.
And he was, of course, in Superman.
Oh yeah, that's right. I think didn't Francis Ford Coppola write the screenplay for that? I think that's part of the reasons why he got cast because he recommended him or something. They wanted him to play the role.
Sure. Oh my God, Last Tango in Paris. What are we gonna do?
I have no idea. There's so many movies to explore, but then another reason why we decided to do these other two shows too is because, like, obviously as human beings, I'm not saying we're tired of CinemAsian, but like we just have other ideas in our head right now. Like for me anyway, like I was excited to do On Block, I was, but then like her and I started talking about like organized crime, and I'm like, oh shit, The Godfather. She's like, yeah, let's do The Godfather. Oh, sweet. You know, like so that just like jumped up from like being not even a thought to like up to the top of the ladder, you know, like instantly. And then obviously after that discussion we had with music last week, I was like, oh man, metal, you know. So
Hey, because we were talking about Boardwalk Empire season 3. Oh my goodness. Where what's his name again? Cannavale.
Jip Rossetti.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, how he just totally steals the show.
I love that. I love his character in that so much. What do you mean, good fortune, huh? What's that supposed to mean, huh? Good fortune, huh? What do you mean, huh? What you mean by that, huh? I don't need
But
good
he,
fortune.
He like kills the dude. That's great.
he's kind of like Santino, right? Like this one guy that just kind of like blows up out of nothing, especially, in the beginning with, like it's a car tire, something is happening. And the guy's like, yeah, but it's something so simple. It's just that. And he is so insulted right away. But also, of course, I'm going over on a derailing big time. But what I really like is that he seems like such a tough guy. But then you have that one scene that takes place in his home where he's like, with his suit and shit, and then the door opens and it's his wife and maybe I believe his mother-in-law, and basically he ain't got shit to say at home. But as soon as he walks out, he's the man. Like the whole fucking choky thing. I'm like,
Jip Rossetti. Yeah.
He's a
He
character.
lights the freaking police officer on fire. He kills a dude with a shovel. Literally.
He like buries the guy's head sticking out of the sand. He like beats the dude with a shovel. It's insane.
And not just women, I heard. As well with Brando, at least,
Okay, so it was
because there were rumors going around for a long time that he was having a relationship with like Montgomery Clift, and Montgomery Clift feeling very whatever It's not the time. So tomorrow, music and chill.
Music and chill tomorrow. Ride the Lightning, Metallica, and Silence in the Snow Trivium. Little old school, little new school. It's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be fun. So we don't know what we're gonna do next week yet because we have so many things going in our minds right now.
We will let you know for sure, though.
Oh my gosh! So
We're gonna make you, an offer you can't refuse. That's what we're gonna do next week, right?
So we hope you guys enjoy it, and music and chill. Of course, it has some weird thoughts going on, but as I said during our previous streams before, I'm sorry, I'm very itchy, hay fever, whatever. It's kind of like chilling, like if we were sitting at home, like, hey man, sup? Have you seen that movie? But we're doing it on a fucking camera, so the girl has to put the bra and makeup on. So, anyways. Not that I have to. I mean, probably would get more viewers if it was like, oh, hi.
The Godfathers.
The Gotti movie with John Travolta is probably going to be soon one of my picks because even though it's not really that good, well, I have it on DVD. Even though it's not really that good, I think it's interesting to see John Travolta as
John Gotti. Hey, did you watch a new? Did you see the Tom Hardy Capone movie yet?
No.
It's not great, but it's cool to see him look like Al Capone. Like they put the scars and stuff on his face and everything. It's pretty badass.
Well, the thing is that I'm really fucking biased when it comes to it. If it's not a fucking hot Italian guy doing the part, I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to watch it. So, my preference is out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching.
See you guys tomorrow on my channel for Music and Chill.
Arrivederci. Arrivederci, Torino. That's what Madonna would say in Ciao Italia, the DVD or whatever. So,